Hello everyone, welcome to my Call of Duty World War II Veteran Difficulty walkthrough, and this is Mission 6, Collateral Damage. And this was a very unique mission in that I used my rocket launcher as the primary weapon for most of this mission, because the enemies are in some pretty tight corners and tight areas, and the rockets are needed in order to flush the enemies out or deal a lot of damage to multiple enemies. And it was pretty risky, because the rockets have quite a lot of splash damage to them and the range is pretty high, so you need to be very careful when you decide to fire your rocket launcher at certain corners or in certain tight areas. And keeping that in mind, you'll be able to do this mission easily. But before we get to those encounters that were a little bit difficult to understand, but I've come to understand them a lot better, we have this tank sequence right here. And the first thing we're going to be doing is clearing out any enemies that have panzer shreks. The hit detection on the cannon is hit and miss. At times you can aim at that spot right there, for instance, and take out all three enemies in one shot. But there are times where the detection on the cannon shot doesn't detect the enemies right above or below it. So you'll have to fire your cannon multiple times if you want to get rid of them. You can also use your machine gun if you want to get rid of them, only the machine gun doesn't have a lot of range, so it's best to dispatch the enemies at far distance and use your cannon shot. And I find it really cool how there's a lot of environmental destruction in this part of the mission. I'm just amazed that this game offers a lot of ways to destroy the environment. Like when you fire at a random building, that part of the building's going to break off. I didn't think this game would ever do anything like that, and like most games don't really allow buildings to be broken off that easily by random cannon shots. But with this game, they've definitely put a great emphasis on the destructive power of these tanks. And I quite like that small design that they decided to put in with the environmental destruction with this tank. And we have to fight these panzer tanks right now, and this is really where you're going to understand one thing that I don't like about the tanks on this mission compared to Call of Duty Classic. In Call of Duty Classic, you had the ability to hold X to align the body of the tank with the cannon. So you could hold X the entire time and you wouldn't have to worry about your cannon being off-center with the body of the tank. And it made controlling the tanks a lot easier to handle in Call of Duty Classic, but for some reason they don't bring this feature in with Call of Duty World War II. So I found controlling the tanks to be annoying at first, but I've come to understand how they work, and this sequence is a lot of fun, and I've come to understand how to take care of these tanks easily. So when you start the fight, you'll want to take the path exactly like how I did it, and then you want to circle the building and get around the second tank. That second tank will always be in that position, and you can easily take it out with a couple of shots to the back. Now, for this guy, you've got to stay out of his line of sight long enough to trigger a last known position. I know, right? Whoever thought Call of Duty would ever embrace a last known position mechanic? This is the first Call of Duty game to ever utilize a last known position mechanic, and you can tell when the last known position mechanic is triggered because Perez will say that he cannot see the enemy, and when he can't see them, it means the enemies cannot see you. And you can use this time to sneak around to the backside of this tank and fire at its back. It's not going to die in 2 shots because this is a stronger variant of the Panzer tank known as a Tiger. And it takes roughly 3 to 4 shots to the back to get rid of this tank. And this is it right here. And that is the end of this boss fight. And all you need to do now is climb up this hill right here. And the game is going to heal you when you get up here, which is really good design in case you incurred a lot of damage from that boss fight, which you shouldn't be taking a lot of damage from that boss anyway, because that fight's very easy, and like I said, I had to restart that fight at least 2 or 3 times to really get a good idea as to how to actually deal with those tanks and find a consistent strategy, but it paid off in the end. And then for this fight right here, it's very easy. You just need to sit in this spot and then take out the 3 half-tracks in that panzer tank, and then once they're dead, there are going to be a bunch of panzer shrek guys that spawn from that building right across from you. And you might be thinking, how am I going to shoot these guys from this distance if I can't see them? Well, you can see them, because the game does something really cool here. It highlights all of the enemies in black. And, like, watch. You see that? I can see them from all the way over here because they're highlighted in black, and their color contrasts with the background, making them very easy to spot. So I'm just going to sit in this spot, and I'm going to snipe them using my cannon. The machine gun will not reach at this range. And once Perez asks if there's anyone left, that means the encounter is over, and we're going to swap back to Daniels. And then this is where the tough part of the mission is going to begin. That isn't so tough anymore now that I've actually repeated this mission several times. So there's going to be an MG42 firing at you, and you'll need to dive to prone into that spot right there, and then dive over here, and then you need to dive into this car, and this is a chance to do a heroic action, so I recommend you do it just so you can charge up your squad ability. I throw a smoke just in case, because this guy never seems to hit me whenever I use the smoke. I mean, I got hit just then, but he stopped firing at me the moment I started dragging him. So, I'm not sure what that's about, but thank God for that. And this is where I'm going to use my bazooka in order to take out these enemies. I'm going to not fire my bazooka at this range because at times, if you get view kicked, you'll hit the ceiling on accident, and the splash damage will hit you. Because like I said, the splash damage on the bazooka has a lot of range. And then this is a good spot right here because the enemies won't be able to view kick me. In case you're wondering what view kick means, view kick is a whole system where when you take damage, it causes your gun to flail upward. So it causes you to move off target whenever you get hit. There have been Call of Duty games that have offered you perks such as toughness to reduce the flinch that's generated by getting hit. And the flinch is another way of saying view kick. But this game, you don't have anything like that, so you got to be very careful when you decide to go out of cover and start shooting the enemies. If they view kick you, it is very hard to position yourself to actually hit the enemies. The only real counter to the view kick that kind of works, but oftentimes it doesn't, is if you aim at around the leg area of an enemy, when they make you flinch, it will cause your gun to rise upward, and when it rises upward at its maximum apex, you'll be able to hit them around the head area or around the chest area, and that's how it's going to be. I mean, it's not practical that much, because you can still put yourself into pretty good positions where you won't be taking any damage, but that's really the only recommendation I can give in case the view kick is messing with you. Now, this part right here, when you move down this alleyway, you'll trigger certain spawns to happen. Just spawn kill them using your bazooka, and that will be the end of this sequence right here, and we're going to move on. I'm going to take the time to ask Turner for some ammunition. Really one of the few times I actually asked Turner for ammunition, because this level has a lot of ammo caches, so you won't be using Turner that much. I mean, the only reason I used him was to empty his squad ability system, so that when I kill an enemy, I'll at least know that I killed an enemy, because when I kill an enemy, it means the bar is going to fill. So that's a really nice bit of feedback in knowing whether you're actually killing enemies or not. Now, this part right here, just use your bazooka again. This is the best position to be in, because these enemies have a pretty good advantage over you if you decide to go over into the room where Turner is. So stay in the spot, and you'll want to shoot the enemies in this order. Pay attention to where the bullets are coming from, and pay attention to where your allies are shooting in order to get your bearings as to where the enemies are. And then once you get your bearings, just aim near that area so that the splash damage will kill the enemies. You'll have to crouch and go prone a bit if you want to actually hit the enemies that are above. And if you need any ammo refills, just use the ammo cache on your right, and you'll be able to use your bazooka again. And always make sure you're putting yourself in a position where you won't take any damage from the enemies, because if they view kick you and you fire your rocket at the same time, you will most likely hit a wall, you'll hit your AI partner, or you'll hit the ceiling and you'll die, or you'll fail the mission. I did actually fail this mission by accidentally hitting my AI partners, and every single Call of Duty game except for Modern Warfare 2019, I believe, because I think they did an interview where they said they weren't putting this feature in. Every single Call of Duty game aside from that game, they have the whole system where if you damage your AI partners enough, you will fail the mission and you'll have to restart from the last checkpoint. Now, this one right here, I wasn't able to get this on my first attempt because of a really stupid moment that happened, but you need to kill that guy, then kill this guy, and then shoot this guy through the cover. I don't know why he's bothering putting that disc down if I'm going to be able to just shoot him through the cover. And then use a couple of smokes here to increase your chances of actually surviving this running moment. And you'll want to get over to this guy and melee him. Do not bother shooting him. If you're trying to shoot him, you'll slow it down, because you can fire and sprint at the same time in this game. And I'm almost certain that in Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, you have the ability to fire and sprint at the same time, but you can't do it in this game, which is why I recommend you melee instead of firing your gun. And you want to get to this spot right here, but this spot is very dangerous. The enemies are going to rush you like crazy when you decide to go into this spot. I don't know why this happens, but there are going to be like 3 or 5 enemies closing in on you when you decide to sit in that spot, so be ready with your MP40 or whatever weapon you have. I mean, I recommend the MP40 because the MP40 is the best weapon in this mission, because every other weapon, they just feel very underpowered. Like the FG42, the Thompson, like, it takes so many shots to actually take out these enemies. I don't know why it feels like the enemies on this mission have more health than they're supposed to have. But it just feels very jarring and disconnecting because that's not what I'm expecting from a Call of Duty game. Like every single enemy in a Call of Duty game generally dies very fast from like 2 or 3 bullets, but these enemies, it feels like they can take roughly 6 or 7 shots before they finally go down. Like, how does that make any sense? And I even had times where I'd be aiming for the head, and the headshot just wouldn't detect properly in this mission. I don't know if this is the case with certain weapons, or if this mission just has a really weird property with certain enemies in this mission. But this is so odd that it would work like this. And this part right here, I'm going to be so aggressive. So you need to kill this guy with your MP40 and then make a mad dash for this cover right here. And you're going to need to shoot your bazooka into this wall so that the splash damage will take out these enemies. You're going to need to fire twice here so that you can get rid of the enemies guarding this side. And be very careful because through that doorway, there could be an enemy. And I get into a spot of bother here where I nearly die from an enemy that's in that doorway. And also take the time to fire your rocket at that guy right there because he can sometimes shoot you, but there's that guy. And look, I almost died just then. And I think the splash damage killed him just then. I'm not too sure. But I'm going to push up when I get a breather because I'm out of rockets right here. And that right there, I get caught on that little box right there. That was very cheap just then. Clipping almost screwed me right there. And then this was very close as well. This guy nearly kills me, but I healed at the right moment. So all the damage he dealt to me was negated by my healing animation. And these enemies are preoccupied with your allies, so take the time to take them out. And that will be the end of the sequence. And I'm almost certain that if you didn't do it like this would be an infinite spawn moment. It just feels like this is the opportunity for an infinite spawn moment to appear. So if you're not aggressive, you won't be able to end the sequence very quickly like I just did. And make sure you ask Zussman for a medkit because this is the last time we'll actually be using Zussman in this mission. And then this next combat encounter with Aiello is incredibly easy because all it involves you doing for the first phase is waiting inside of this destroyed plane, and then once the phase ends, you are able to take out these 2 half-tracks, and the good news is most of the enemies are dead, so the half-tracks aren't going to be any problem whatsoever. And the best part is, they can't seem to shoot you. Like, they have a lot of trouble turning. Like, they can't turn the full way, so they're fish in the barrel when you have to take them out. And here they come right now. So, you're going to need to move forward. I still remain prone just in case there are any enemies around. I'm not hearing any other gunfire, so I'm almost certain that every single enemy is dead aside from these half-track guys. And look at this bullcrap right here. I'm shooting this guy directly in the head, and he's not dying. It's almost like the guys on the half-tracks have special properties where they don't respond to different systems compared to the normal enemies. So even if you aim for the head, it's almost like the headshot modifier is disabled for these enemies. So you're going to have to pump in a lot of shots into them before they eventually die. And then once the 2 half-track guys are dead, you're going to need to go back inside of the hotel, and there are some quick-time events that you're going to be doing, and then you're going to be doing a stealth sequence. And I'm amazed that these enemies have no idea what's been occurring here. Like, this is a war zone. They surely heard the gunfire and the explosions, and they're acting like there's no one here. And do they not see my allies posted outside? What is this? What is wrong with these guys? Were they inside the hotel the whole time and they were just passed out and not aware of anything that was happening? Like, this is so confusing. But I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm instead just going to do these quick time events, and then I'm going to go all the way to the back because this is where Anna is every single time. And then this is where the stealth encounter begins, and you do not have any silenced weapons at your disposal. You do not have any ability to use takedowns against the enemies because you're holding Anna. And you have to do this whole entire section without getting spotted, because if you get spotted, you'll die. And this is all very easy to do. The enemies always go on the same path, so just follow exactly what I do and you will be fine. And one thing I find very strange about this section is that even when the enemies have their backs to you and they're not even looking in your direction, they can sometimes see you. Like, just then, how did that guy see me a little bit? His head wasn't turned towards my direction, his back was to me, yet he still kinda saw me. So the peripheral vision on the enemies is a little strong in this case, but the enemies don't detect you fast enough to actually fail you. So don't give any thought to it, just follow what I'm doing and you will be fine. A vast majority of the stealth sequence is going to involve following this guy, because he always seems to go right near the exit, and then you'll want to go in this direction, and you need to hide behind these barrels over here, because there's a guy right in front of you, as you can see right there. and then there's going to be a moment where you need to trigger a cutscene by going inside of a room, and I'm just going to skip the cutscene, and this is where my allies are going to attack the enemies, and we need to sneak past the enemies while they're preoccupied with the allies. And this is pretty cool. The whole idea of doing a stealth section that is completely loud and noisy and full of combat, and it's all pretty scripted, because when you reach certain thresholds of this room, there are scripted kills that happen and scripted explosions that happen in order to ensure that you do not get spotted by these enemies. But I like the idea of these stealth sequences, being able to sneak through these encounters in the middle of an active war zone. Like, Splinter Cell, for instance, had sequences like this, particularly Splinter Cell Blacklist, I believe, where the enemies would be fighting your allies, or they would be fighting some other enemy faction, and you were a lone wolf, essentially, in this whole entire encounter. It would be really cool if in that one mission of COD 4, where the Americans and the Russians are fighting each other and everyone is your enemy, if you had some measure of stealth to actually get past that whole entire sequence without having to deal with any of the enemies, because the enemies, a lot of the times, they just choose not to engage with the other enemies, and they prioritize you, because that's just the AI nature of those enemies in that game. And that wasn't like that just then. You were actually sneaking through that whole entire encounter, and the enemies take such a long time to spot you during that moment, which is another really good design that I appreciate. So that right there was a really fun stealth sequence. And now we have this last stand right here that is very easy. The enemies are going to be rushing you a lot, so I recommend you use your M1 Garand rather than your Thompson. The M1 Garand is a lot more precise, and it's a semi-automatic weapon compared to the Thompson, which is fully automatic and has a pretty bad iron sight, and it doesn't do a lot of damage. Definitely a great example of another weapon that I feel is better designed in World at War compared to World War II. The first weapon I said was the bar, and then the second weapon is the Thompson. The Thompson in World at War is a lot better than the Thompson on this game, in my opinion. I feel like it does a lot more damage, and you have a lot more control over it. But I'm just going to shoot through the window of this car right here in order to minimize my hitbox as much as possible. And this will allow me a great advantage in dealing with these enemies, because you'll notice the enemies love to rush you a lot in this section. And there's going to be a flamethrower guy that will spawn, and he's the last enemy of this encounter, and there he is. So just eke out of cover. I don't think he has enough range to actually hit you with that flamethrower, and just take him down. Then you're going to want to hold square on the back of the truck, and this will cue an on-rail section where you need to take out these two Nazis with your pistol. And once you've done that, that will be the end of this mission. But before I conclude the commentary here, I'm going to showcase two bloopers that I encountered that prevented me from actually doing this mission without dying. And the first one is, I get shot through a wall. Watch this bullcrap right here. Watch this. Look at that. Right behind me. How did I get shot? That is stupid. And then right here, this guy's body obstructs my view, so I can't see what's in front of me, and I die. I mean, the first one is a stupid example of the kind of crap you deal with in games like Call of Duty Classic, for instance, because I have been shot through walls in Call of Duty Classic, and I imagine there are other cases where you can get shot through geometry in the other Call of Duty games. I mean, that's just the only part of the game where I've noticed this issue, where you can get shot through a wall, but I hope there aren't any other sequences like that. And in the moment where that guy's dead body obstructed my view, I don't know why you can see inside of them. I wish when you were inside the body, you couldn't just see his whole entire body. I just wish his body disappeared when you got inside of it. That way you could actually see. Because you can't move the bodies out of the way. There's no kind of pushing or any kind of interaction between your bullets and the bodies to move them out of the way. Why can we see inside of them? If they actually made that body disappear, that would have been a lot fairer. But that's really the only time that issue's affected me, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But that is the end of this mission. Stay tuned for the future missions. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.